really is going to be impactful. And it's important to know, not just for us. The 1 mil impacts our charter schools too. And I think that's an important thing. It's going to impact a lot of people. For just Hillsborough, and I can't speak for charter schools, although they get a large portion of it. For Hillsborough County, 92% of the money received out of about $183 million is going to go directly to our people. And so as the slide shows, over 23,000 employees have been directly impacted by this referendum. And so they see that every paycheck, and that has been a tremendous help to them at a time where everything gets harder in our county. In addition to that, about 8% of that money that's left over will go to academic enhancements, and that follows the plan that we told everyone when we first did it. And if you remember when we kind of talked about that as a district, it's going to go to things like helping carry that extra half of the pre-K program, so our folks can have more options to attend our pre-K. It's going to help in field trips. We already have the college and career readiness counselors in place that are already assisting. There's a lot of good benefits and much more that will happen from that 8%. So again, what's a strength? These are the strengths that we're seeing in Hillsborough that has helped us manage through our success. All right, so let's get right into it with, well, where do we stand with enrollment in FTE, our primary revenue drivers in what we do here in Hillsborough. On the board, you'll see from 22-23 to 25-26, these are snapshots of the unweighted FTE. And the reason we want to use that number is that's the closest you can get to actual head count from an FTE standpoint. So as we look at this, we kind of see how the marketplace, and think of it like that. These are the options that families have, and we see the migration. But as these changes occur, we have to also adjust what we're doing here in Hillsborough. So as families have more options or things become more readily available, we see how these things have shifted over the last couple of years. So for example, we go back to fiscal year 23, we see that out of all this FTE that we see, about 81% ran through Hillsborough. We owned about 81% of the market, if you want to call it that. And then we see about charter was about 15%, and we see FES was about 4%. Okay. As we kind of fast forward to the third calc of this year, we see how that's kind of changed. Now, charters remained about the same. They've remained at about 15%. We have shifted downward a little bit to about 73%. So we went from 81 to 73%. But the big change that we've seen is the FES program, that those students, over these years, they've increased by 19,285 FTE, again, unweighted, and that's a 223% increase. And so that's a challenge for us because those are kids that are in Hillsborough that are no longer part of Hillsborough County Public Schools. Now, what to clarify that is we're not saying that all of those kids came from a Hillsborough County Public School, but some did. But you just see how the shift in the county is occurring because it's Hillsborough County, and you would see similar stories throughout the state. And so as we consider this, we have to highlight this market change and then be ready to adjust to what we're seeing. Well, FTE gets a little confusing, so let's go to enrollments. So as we look at enrollment for the systems that really flow through us at Hillsborough. So as we know, one of the confusing things about our finances is that it's not just Hillsborough County Public Schools, it's Hillsborough County Public Schools, and then charters also flows through us in a way, and then DJJ also flows through us. So this graph kind of shows that. Now DJJ's there, you can barely see it. It remains fairly consistent. It's such a low number that you sit at the very bottom. But as we kind of look at this kind of storyboard of where our enrollment, again, enrollment's going to be people in seats, student in seats. And so as we see this, we do see enrollment has remained overall in Hillsborough fairly consistent. Now, it has ups and it's had its downs, and we do see how it has declined somewhat between the 2017 and 2026. The difference is really going to be inside those brackets. How has the enrollment changed inside our Hillsborough County Public Schools, charter, and DJJ? And again, like I said, DJJ has remained fairly consistent. Charter has seen mostly growth throughout that time period. And so as they've seen growth, we've seen a natural decline to some extent. And then recently, charter schools started to see a decline. That's probably just in relation to everyone seeing that throughout the entire state. And so as we jump a little bit further, we'll see, well, what does that mean? Let's dig a little bit deeper for Hillsborough County Public Schools. So as we look at this, we have elementary, middle school, our K-8 in high school, our traditional units, and then we see our kind of our grouped in our alternative career, ESE virtual, all kind of, our other options. As we've seen this over this period of time, this 10-year period, we have seen as Hillsborough, all the areas, we've seen it decline by about 10.6% overall over this 10-year period. Enrollment, and traditional K-12 enrollment has decreased since last year, and this is a snapshot of day 100s of each of these years. We have seen our day 100 enrollment from last year to this year decline by 7,597 students since last spring to basically this spring. What's important about this is you might say, well, do we have to take on that huge loss in the third calc? No, we didn't. If you remember, we anticipated a decrease from last spring going into this semester, and in the beginning of this year, our enrollment's a little bit down from where we thought we would be. What we had hoped is we would see a natural rebound. Didn't really see that this year. And I think that's something we got to monitor, and we do monitor enrollment throughout the year, but we're not seeing the traditional fall and then early winter rebounds that we normally do. And so we really have got to look at enrollment and how the marketplace is changing. I think besides marketplace, we're also seeing just in general things change. And so we're going to have to look at birth rates, state of Florida, who's coming into the state, who's leaving the state, how's the county, where's the construction happening, what's happening in other counties. All those things influence our enrollment and where our kids are in Hillsborough. Moving along is the FEFP program, which, again, like we said earlier, a little bit complicated. Don't know if we could ever fully explain it in a workshop, but hopefully we'll help shed some light on it. There's really 4 critical areas to the FEFP process, and that's the Florida Educational Finance Program. The first one is eligibility. And so as we look at eligibility, we have to understand that attendance is a vital part of the FEFP process. And so what's going to happen is at certain periods of time, we're going to capture attendance, and then we're going to go through a process and send that up to the state, and then it's going to be certified, and it's going to eventually form into, at the end of our process, a calculation of payments. So our eligibility is the first one, and then we're going to take that attendance, and there's really 4 critical survey periods that we have each year. We're going to have one in July, we're going to have one in October, February, and June. And the October one, in my opinion, is the most critical one. It really gauges kind of where we're at. If everything kind of settles at the beginning of the year and we get into school, and that's really going to set the tone about where that third calc payment's going to come from. As we look at that, the important note about it is when we take that attendance snapshot, there's really 2 big rules of thumb about calculating that. Number one, that week of the survey, a student has to be in attendance at least one of those days of that week. If they're not, they had to be in attendance at least one day of the 6 days prior to that week. So, if a student's out or something's happening, that affects that attendance record. And so that moment of time is so important that we capture. And I think having focus and having the ability to have new systems that's allowed us to enhance that process, and that's been a good tool for us. The second part of the process is certification. So after we get all the information from enrollment and attendance, we're going to formulate all that and combine it all together, and then we finance and IT work hand in hand on that process, and that gets submitted up to the state. After the state gets it, there's a process that is interesting, and that's our third process of they recalibrate, if needed, that FTE number. So I wanted to spend a few minutes on this because it is kind of is different, and we got to make sure we understand the challenges that we have with it. And if an FTE is not always equal 1, and I think that's something that's really important for us to understand. So let me kind of give you an example of how this works. So FTE will always be capped at 1.0 no matter what. No matter how many classes a student takes, there are some exceptions to that, but the basic layout is it will only be capped at 1, and so if they take a lot of classes or they split time with us, maybe through Florida Virtual or something like that, again, the payments will only be capped at 1.0. And so if the funding is only that means that the district will not receive additional funding if that student takes more than what they're going to basically allocate for. And so as we see that, we also have to factor in if they're involved in multiple districts. I think a good example, as I just mentioned, is Florida Virtual School. If we have a student that takes a full load with us, and we'll see this as an example in a minute, they take all the classes with us and they go home and take a Florida Virtual class, we have to share that 1.0 with Florida Virtual School, which is like its own district. And so that's something that complicates all this. So we can have the kid all day long and the student all day long, but if they do other things or take additional classes, we're not getting the return in resources and funding for all the efforts that we're putting in, or maybe what the student's taking. Also, partial year adjustment, and not to get too far into this, but different surveys, different points of time. If a student's not captured in one, then they adjust what that FTE payment would be if they're only on one survey versus another. And as everything, there's always exceptions, and we won't go down that, but there's just kind of exceptions to the rule sometimes. I think what might help is looking at this visual that we have about, okay, well, what happens if, let's say, a student splits time between us and, we use the example as Florida Virtual School. And so if we look at this, we have a Hillsborough County student, high school student, on the left-hand side. They're taking 5 courses with Hillsborough. And then they are also taking an additional course, a 6th course, at Florida Virtual School. Well, instead of us getting the full 1.0, we're going to split that funding with Florida Virtual School, and you kind of see how that's split there. Another good example of it is if a student's taking 8 courses with Hillsborough, we're not going to get funded for all 8 courses. We're only going to get funded for the 1.0 that's been preset for that FTE. And so if we have students that are going above and beyond, and again, that's what makes our opportunity so unique, because they do that, and that leads to great success, our funding only gets related back to a 1.0 FTE. And that's a challenge for what we do. And of course, there's always exceptions to that, but a good example of kind of how that works. Another reference that we have is our high school claim rates. So as we think about this, all of our high schools as a general, we have students kind of finishing their time with us, and they're kind of moving on. Not all our high school students are with us all day long. And I think that's something we got to realize, because even though we might they might be with us for a majority of the day, we don't get that full payment. And so our claim rate, if you look at it, is a little small, but if you look at it, on the second column is our FTE, and the third is our enrollment, and then the claim rate is the differential between the two. And you'll notice there's not one high school that we have where all students are there all day long. Well, what does that mean? That means the funding that we're going to get from the state is not going to be 100% for all those students. And so as we kind of navigate through that, our claim rate, our just a full-time attendance ratio, or whatever you like to call it, averages between 87 and 96%. Well, they might be with us for majority day, and we put resources in place as if they were, but if they're not, we don't get that full payment. So that makes it a challenge for us. And I think what makes it a bigger challenge than anything is they show up in the morning, they're with us all the way to that last period of the day, and then they just need that, they didn't need that extra class, so they're off and about. We just don't get all that funding, even though we put all the resources in of like we're going to teach them all day long. So that is a challenge for us. And it's going to get more impactful as students are, they're looking for other options and they're doing things, but it is a challenge for us in the funding department. Finally, the last step of our FEFP process is our FTE schedule and calculation. Now, there's about 5 steps to this process, but the one thing that we wanted to point out is it gets a little complicated. And what we want to show is the challenge with this is, when do we truly know? When do we really know what we can base our budgets on in our financial outlook? So if you look at the 5 different stages, we see it, and actually this process begins the spring prior to the year. We just went through this. We worked with the state on enrollment projections, and they kind of build some data systems for us. And so all that's being done, and then a conference report is built. Now, what the conference report means is really just a series of projections, right? And as you look, as you get through every different calculation, those projections turn into actuals. The third calculation, I think, is the most important. That, if you remember, that's the one we hopefully receive around January or February, and it's based off of October information. What's important about that one is it's the first time in the year that we really see actual numbers and the impact of the budget and where we go. As we look at that, that's a point in time where we say, okay, well, how are we going to end for the year? What adjustments can we make? The challenge for us in the finance department is when that comes out in January or February, the time that we have from that point to the end of the year, a lot of things are already set in place. And of course, we don't want to disrupt things like the classroom. So if you remember back a couple weeks ago, we talked about the third calculation, and we lost some enrollment, and then we had a series of financial loss. We're trying to overcome that, but what can really be modified and changed? Obviously, there is some, but how much can happen between that point in time and then the end of the year? You have things like graduation. It's pretty set. You have things that our classrooms are already established. And so based on the series of timelines, the data is good when it comes out, but it is a struggle financially because it doesn't give us all the data. The fourth calculation is also a good point in time to kind of reference that. That's when our virtual numbers really come into play. So virtual classes will come in, and that typically the fourth calc, some on the fifth calc or the final FEFP. In virtual numbers, they get reimbursed to us once a student completes and passes the course. And so we don't really see that toward the end of the year, and that's why that fourth calc, which hopefully is April, kind of depends on the year, but that's typically when it does come into place. All right, so that's a lot of information so far. Let's talk a little bit about our people and what does that mean as we looked at enrollment, we looked at how we're funded, let's look at the greatest asset that we have, which is our greatest resource in our people. And that's who really goes on to powers our mission here at Hillsborough. And so this chart shows a 10-year snapshot of our active employees. And so as we look at these numbers, we start back in 16, 17. This is a fall snapshot too, around October of each year. As we look at this, we see in 16, 17, that's our high points. Yeah, we kind of look at this graph. That was the highest we had, and we were a little over 26,000 active employees back in 16, 17. And then we kind of declined for a little bit, and then you see in 2021 we kind of jumped up a little bit, and now we see we've declined. And so really the big takeaways that we have is we have decreased about 2,100 employees in this 10-year period. This past fall, our snapshot in time for this reference, we have about 24,000 active employees. And so the encouraging part, I think, for our district is there's two big takeaways that we see from this is, number one, we've seen the challenges with enrollment and we've had to respond accordingly. And then we've also tried to be as efficient as we can, and that doesn't mean that we've made easy decisions, and they're hard. But as you saw enrollment shift downward for us, we also seen that our personnel has shifted downward, and that's important because if not, then our budget gets not the way that we want it and proportionate like we need it to be, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Let's talk about maybe drilling down a little bit more, because I think this is helpful for us to understand. As we look at our 10-year snapshot, this current fall, about 56% of all of our active employees are teachers. And then we kind of drill down a little bit more, and our school administrators account for about 3% of that. And then our district administrators a tad over 1%, so a little bit over 1%. And then our support personnel is about 40%. So it kind of shows how we're broken up as a district. And of course, we could drill down a lot more into this in a lot of different ways. When we looked at this over the 10-year period, we did see proportionate ratios that we have on the slide here for almost every year. A little bit different from time to time, but if you look at it from year over year for 10 years, we're roughly about the same proportion throughout the decade. The one thing that we wanted to highlight as we see this about 2,000 employee decrease over 10 years, that's about an 8.3% decrease. Sometimes when you have that, maybe proportions change a little bit. Maybe they don't go the way you wanted to. Everything remained fairly consistent. And we wanted to highlight, because I know it's always a big topic, district administrators. So back in 16-17, our district administrators were about 348 employees. This year, we're about 312. Both are 1.3% of total personnel. So I think adjustments have been made proportionately along the way, and that will be a continual emphasis for us because every year it's different. Every year we have to monitor what that's going to be. And I think one good way to monitor that is a personnel ratio. That's been talked about a lot. I know my first year that was a big topic, and I think it's a good indicator of how are we managing our budget in comparison to total personnel costs. So as we look at this and we see on this graph, 79% is our current ratio of total personnel expense in the general fund compared to total general fund expenses. Now, that excludes charter. So what we did is we take the charter out because that's not really our money. That just flows through us. We take a total expenses, and then we take total personnel. Remember, that means salaries, taxes, benefits, all those things, and we're at 79%. But if you look at these numbers, and you go back through the years, 87% was just a couple of years ago. And if you remember, when we looked at that personnel chart, that's kind of when we went up. And so that meant that we had to right-size that as a district because we kind of got out of balance. And so what we've done over the years is we've kind of right-sided. You saw how we trickled that down. And in the last 3 years, and I think this is a really good thing that the district has been managing and focused on, we've been roughly around the same targeted ratio. I think that's a good proportion. So that shows our efficiency that we're handling. Staffing allocations is our next stop in our journey. And so we'll spend a couple more minutes about this. I know it's a big topic for us. So staffing allocations. The first thing that we want to say, it's a continuous process. It's talked about all the time. Obviously, there's big moments in time during the year where it's talked about a little bit more, but it is something that's looked at and talked about the entire time. One of the things that I'm encouraged about is this year we had the opportunity to revamp our staffing allocations team, which most of them are here today. And I'm thankful that we're able to put people on that team that have either been a principal or have worked at a school site, whether as a teacher or some other capacity, and they understand the inner workings of the school, and they have a lot of those connections. I'll pick on Mr. Moody, which I already told him I would. He has been tremendous in helping us. We kind of threw him for a whirlwind in the first 45 days with us. But he really helped us reimagine, you'll see in a minute, our elementary allocations, and made some really tremendous improvements there. But back to our process real quick, is our process aims to do these things. We try to help ensure an annual and continuous review. It's a constant, right? We're always looking at it. We ensure that we're being equitable and efficient as best as we can, and it's never perfect. But we try to make it as best as we can and adjust to what we're seeing in the marketplace or in the times or whatever's happening. We're making those necessary adjustments. Because what we're trying to do is still maximize student achievement. And how do we do that? Through strategic planning. We're trying to align those resources for our student needs while also trying to align to district priorities. We're trying to continue to work towards better communication, and that's something we'll always work toward, and I think there's a lot of opportunities there for us to improve on that, but we're definitely thankful to our partnerships throughout the district who work with us on this. And then we identify and we have to adapt to that marketplace change. As we saw that enrollment change, we have to adapt to it. And so our year-round process really is in 3 stages. We have spring allocations, we have a fall adjustment period, but throughout all of that, we meet once a week, and we'll talk about that in a minute, to review any needs that are needed in our district and discuss those. As far as our process flow goes, there's really a couple of big steps that we wanted to mention and then provide some takeaways. The first one is we have to look at enrollment, which is the primary revenue driver for everything that we do. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take day 100. It's the most critical point in time that we have every year. We're going to take day 100, and we're going to use it as a key moment in time to help build our projections and calculations for the following year. And then we're going to use that, and we're going to use roll forward, which we'll discuss in a minute, about how we're trying to build those projections. And then we got to look at that in comparison to our FTE calculations and our survey data, and then working with various departments across Hillsborough. And then we got to also factor in, well, what's happening at the state level? And so as we look at the state and the funding and the factors there, we want to look at, again, those calculations. We want to look at our high school attendance and that recalibration or our claim rate, because, again, we got to see, just because our enrollment says this, we might not receive payment for all that. So how does that blend together? And then we want to look at staffing allocations and ratios after we built numerous models and options for us to consider. And then we also always have specialized needs and units throughout our various areas of our district. And so as we look at that, all that leads to is we build some preliminary allocations. We take all that data and we build some models. What could we or what could we not do? I will say, from coming to the district, one of the biggest challenges I think we have is we're doing that in a period of time where we really don't know is it just a projection for enrollment, which is what you'd always have to do, but we really don't know at that point in time when we're doing this what the state budget is going to look like. If the state budget was able to be approved and come out before schools had to go through allocations, that would allow us to have a more firm reality of what is going to happen. So again, we have a great team that monitors that, and we have connections, and you all help us out tremendously with understanding what's going to happen. But that is a point in time where we're making some assumptions, and so we're trying to make the best decision possible, but that doesn't line up very well, and so that's a challenge for us. But we are going to build those preliminary models, and what's going to happen there is we're going to work closely with our budget team, and we're going to try to see what we can and can't fit into what's going to happen, our preliminary actions. And then we're going to work with groups across Hillsborough. And so just to name a few, but I'm definitely going to leave some folks out, and I don't mean to, but regional superintendents and principals, we definitely are working with them. Academics and choice, growth management, scheduling, budget, all areas across the district we work with of how to build these allocations because we're trying to factor in a whole bunch of data. And then again, everyone's trying to come to the same conclusion of where we think the projection's going to be. And again, it's never a perfect science to it. And then, of course, our final step is the transition over to HR, as they're currently working through right now and getting ready for the placement season as we go through the process. And so the takeaways for us as we go through this from a financial standpoint is enrollment will always drive revenue, but revenue will always, unfortunately, drive our staffing and our programs because that's the mechanism that we need to make that work. And our staffing and programs then have to be back to enrollment, a correlation there, and they have to sync up. And so I believe, as I said earlier, this is by far the biggest challenge that we have as a school district, to try to balance all of this and at the same time try to provide as much support to our students and our schools that we can when we are limited in maybe what we can or can't do. I won't spend a lot of time, and I've talked a lot. You guys don't want to hear me talk for much longer, so I will talk a little bit about just to highlight our process and the three big stages of our allocations. The first one is our spring allocation, which we're just kind of getting to the end of. Our spring allocation process, again, starts with day 100. That is critical. Day 100 is a measure in time where we have, and again, like we mentioned, growth management, focus assignments, choice accepts. We work with various departments throughout the district about where do we think enrollment is going to land. Based on that, we're going to build some preliminary formulas, and then we're going to analyze that from what we understand from the state budget and from where our enrollment is. After that, we're going to meet with regional superintendents, and we're going to take a more deeper dive and say, what do y'all think? What's feasible and not? Because we're just working through the preliminary options at that point before we go and we talk to principals. And so this year you might have saw that we had a process where we did that, and we worked through that, and then we meet with regional superintendents and principals, and as we work through that. And there's always unique stories and needs and changes, but I will say I'm very thankful for the collaboration that was done. We have folks in academics are helping with scheduling, and we're working with the choice department. All those things are coming together to try to figure out where we're at, understanding the hard truth that our enrollment has shifted downward a little bit, and that's something we have to adjust to. And then finally, the transition over to HR. And so as we consider all that, we then look at enrollment from that point all the way to the beginning of school. And there is some time-to-time adjustments made because unique things happen. You might see some school unexpectedly have a mass growth in enrollment, and we would go ahead and make some changes there if we knew that was going to happen. But the big next point in time is going to be day 7 of the next school year. And the reason we use day 7 is we kind of want that school to start and settle in a little bit. Everything's happening. People are moving to the area. Maybe not everyone starts on day 1, but day 7 is a good measure in time. So in the fall, we'll take day 7 enrollment, and we'll go through the same process basically that we just talked about. By then, we know what the state's going to do from a budget standpoint, so we're able to apply real-time information into that part, and then we're able to look at where did enrollment actually go. Did we hit our target? Sometimes we're over, sometimes we're under, sometimes we're kind of right in the ballpark. And so we look at that, and of course choice is a big part of that, which we'll get into a second. But we do continuously look at that, but that fall adjustment period is very critical in our process flow. And then finally, as we mentioned a minute ago, we do look at this on a weekly basis. Cabinet, separate from our normal cabinet time, meets every week, and we review any needs from anywhere in the district. That's not just a school site, that's any department in any area of the district, and it isn't limited to the general fund only. We do look at all funding groups. And the reason we do that is we want a collaboration of different people in the room to understand, do we need this? Does this invite people in to explain what they do need or don't need? Before all that happens, our staffing team does work with those that submit the request, because what we want to do is also look at is understand the cost of it, obviously, but also we want to look at funding opportunities. So we work with our grants people and see is there opportunities there. We look at other options, and all that comes into place. So that's happening all the time, and that was implemented about 3 years ago, I think. So it was before I got here, but it's been a great tool, and we've continued that, and I think it really highlights how we're trying to monitor what we're doing and be aware of our needs. As we move forward, talking about how do we build those enrollment projections, we want to take a few minutes and talk about our roll forward. And I know what does that really mean? So as we look at this, we'll take day 100 enrollments. And then what we'll do is we'll say, well, how is each grade going to transition into next year? And as we look at that, we want to say, well, there's some assumptions that we can make, but there's also a lot of unknowns that we have. And so if you look at the bottom, it's a good example of a high school. Now, it's an actual high school that we had this year. Yeah, I won't tell you, but if you look at it, the top part is they have about 2,335 students on day 100. As we try to project next year, what we do for a high school, for example, is we know the 12th grade is going to go, they're going to kind of go on to their next phase of life, and then everything else is going to trickle up. What we don't know is we don't know the exact number for grade 9, so that's duplicated. So in this case, what you have is you have a very large 12th grade in comparison to what their 9th grade is currently. And so what we do is we build that enrollment projection, and part of this is in combination too, because we do make adjustments to these numbers with conversations through growth management and choice. And so as we look at this, we kind of see for this high school, we would say, well, why did your enrollment change? And it's no fault of theirs. It's just you see the migration of our students. I think the one thing that we have to be very careful with and monitor is when we look at our enrollment shifts, primarily you're seeing a lot of that from the younger ages. And we got to see, because that will carry through with us. So let me give you an example. If our kindergarten is down in general, well, we expect those kids to be with us, those students, for the next 12 to 13 years. And if they're down, in theory, that would mean that will be a trickle effect throughout the year. And you see information from the state of Florida and birth rates and all that, that kind of backs that up. But we're going to see how this impacts these kind of numbers as transitions of maybe higher groups leave us and maybe lower groups are behind them. So it's something for us to be aware of. But we wanted to give you an example of how roll forward works. And again, not an exact science, and we do make adjustments to all this all the time, but it's kind of the method that we use. Another big one for our district is going to be the choice option. Out of this, what happens is our choice department works with each principal, and they determine the number of choice seats that could be available based on programs and capacity. We work with the choice department and with the final numbers that them and the principals utilize, and that helps build or modify some of the numbers that we do for projections in our enrollment. If we go about that, the biggest part of that's going to be what we call the stick rate. All that means, how many people went through the process, applied, got accepted, how many people actually show up the next fall. And as we look at that, we apply that stick rate, because not everyone who goes through the process is going to come in and be at the school in the fall. So as we look at that, we have those two application process windows that you know about in the fall and then one in March. But the big part of it is we monitor how many people are going through the system and interested in that school, and we know that not all of them will come. So we do modify that somewhat, and we work directly with our school choice department and go in there. Kind of fast forwarding a little bit, we want to talk about our staffing allocation changes for this year, and then you'll see highlights on this on the next page. Is our elementary and middle schools did have some modifications this year, and again, that's part of adjusting to the limited funding that we're receiving, but also to the enrollment shift. The one thing that I think is going to be a great thing for us is we have that new method that we talked about with calculating K-5 units. Used to kind of clump them in a little bit to groups. Now we have them kind of individually looked at, and I think that's been able to make sure each grade level has an appropriate number, and we've received good feedback from our elementary groups about that. And then we have our average, and again, these targeted areas you're going to hear about is what our targeted average is. And so for kindergarten, we're not making any changes for this current year. We're remaining at 18, which is the target that we have as an average. Our grades 1 through 3 are targeted is going to be 20, and then you see 4 and 5 is 24. Again, that's our targeted range that we have. Middle school and high school is a little bit different. We have to consider core and electives for our middle school and high school teams. And so as you see that, we do know that our students pretty much take 7 courses during a day. Our teachers are contractually assigned to teach 6 classes a day, so we balance those differentials. But as we look at that, we do see that middle school, we're looking at that being a core target of 24, and then the high school core average of 27. And again, those are averages. And as we kind of work through that, we did not make any changes to our electives for next year. As we just kind of summarize all that, because that's a lot of information, here's the summaries that we wanted to leave you with, and that is, number one, we have a new method for elementary schools, which I think is going to provide dividends as we move forward. Number two, we did have district leaders, principals, various folks work together and rebuild our K-8 model. We didn't talk about that a lot, but we did rebuild it, and we need to do some more work on that. So we're continuing to work with them. We have reviewed things like IB and ELL and gifted. We've also went and we've looked at additional support areas. You know, one of the things that we created, because it's such a big need for our district, is how do we better support reading? And again, we're not getting additional funding from the state for this, but we thought it was important, and we provided a new reading allocation for middle school and high schools and how that works. And then we adjusted allocations, and we had the information that we had. We are doing a deeper partnership now with title funds, and so that has helped us and helped provide more support to our schools. And we think that relationship here, and we have those folks with us, they've been such a great help this year. It's allowed us to navigate all these changes a little bit better.
Excessive.
All right, almost done, and then you'll have to hear from me. Let's talk about funding for a minute. That's the interesting part, right? As we look at funding changes in the state of Florida, there's challenges that we have, and we know this. But I think this, to me, it gave perspective, and I can say that for, I think it gave my team that too. Let's start in the top right. The state of Florida budget, and we confirm this with our lobbyists, our state of Florida K-12 budget in 2021 was around $23.5 billion. This year, it's around $20.9 billion. Well, that's about a decrease of about $2.6 billion or 7%. So no matter what, the funding is not as strong, or it's shifted in some areas, and so we have to be aware of that. We see that in correlation to some other things. So if you go to the left side, as we look at K-12 funding,
At the bottom.
our base student allocation, you kind of see some numbers there, and I won't read all these, but you kind of see our base student allocation over this time period has only went up about 29.3%. We have to be careful with that because base student allocation stuff comes and goes out of it, and so it's not a direct, okay, this went up, categoricals come, and they kind of leave from it. So we have to be careful with that number, but still, even with that, 29% is the official number. I think two indicators that are really helpful for us, and maybe we don't talk about it as much, and we will, is how much funds do we get per unweighted FTE. I think that's a really good, because that's the full payment that we're going to get. And so if you look at the state of Florida, we see that over this time period, state of Florida, as an average, the unweighted FTE per total funds, according to the FDFP program, went up about 29%. In Hillsborough, we're a little bit different, and ours went up about 27%. And so we're not going up proportionately to how much the state is, and there's factors for that. But at the same time, if you look at the bottom right, well, let's look at inflation. As we look at inflation, as we see things that only went up by 29% or 27% or whatever it might be, we have all experienced, and we know this already, and it's continuing to rise with current situations, that our increase was only about $95, $96 per dollar, or a 45% increase in inflation. So if everything's costing us more, and everything is up around 45% more at the store, our funding's only coming in about 27% increase. So that's a challenge for us, right? As we want to try to pay our people more and do things, that's a challenge as we look at that. A little bit deeper dive into our base student allocation, because this is our primary mechanism that we have for payments. We do see, and I won't expand upon this much, but we do see how it went up. Again, remember last year, our allocation went up very, very little, which was abnormal because we did see other larger increases previous years to that, but it only went up 0.78% this past year. And so remember, as we're used to 3%, 4%, whatever it might be, less than 1% was a challenge for us at a time where we're seeing and experiencing inflation like we are. Another big part we talk about from the budget is property taxes. And so one of the things that I think is a strength for Hillsborough is that we've been able to do and make all the decisions that we had, but our historical millage rate is lower than it was back in 2017, or a 10-year period. And so as we see this, we see how that shifted over time, and that includes our 1 mil. So when you look at 2026, we see that we're at 6.34. Well, that includes 1 mil. So if we didn't have that, we would actually be even lower than we were this last year. And again, you see this during the hearings we have every year. And so as we look at this, well, how is that calculated? So property appraiser sets the assessed value, and then they make reductions for homestead. And then you see how the calculation goes there as we do that. The biggest slide we want to get to that helps understand the millage is this next one about millage funding. And so as we said, the property appraiser is going to set the taxable value. And we've met with them this year, and we have a good relationship with them. They're a great partner to the school district. And then the state of Florida is going to establish the required local effort. And so the district does not set that, but the state of Florida does set that for us, and we work with them. And so as we see that, this is kind of how our property taxes kind of divvy up throughout the year. We get about $1.16 billion in property taxes. About 60% of that's for operations. About 24% of that is for capital. And you got to remember, we got an additional $183 million for the referendum this year, and that's about 16%. So as you see that, we have to understand that that's a vital part of our funding mechanism. And then we also see, and you all had, the board had requested, well, what if we see a slight change in that? Well, what does that mean? One of the big things that we have calculated, and again, there's a lot that has to go into this, so it is a very ballpark number. If we see about a 5% change in taxable value, it's roughly around $50-60 million in funding changes. And so that says we as a school district, we got to monitor what's happening with property taxes, because you'll see in a minute how much we utilize those throughout the year. We won't spend too much time on this, but the fund balance is another source as a strength we talked about earlier in our presentation. And we see how that's changed over the years, and we see how that's going to impact us. But again, we see that, and that's something we'll continue to provide to the board as it's a good snapshot of how we're doing. As we consider our revenue sources, there's really 3 primary buckets that we want to look at. Our federal money is about 0.5%. So again, we're thankful for that, but it's about 0.5% of our overall revenue. Our state revenue, again, primary revenue driver, is about 55-56% of the money that comes in. And as we look a little bit deeper, our local revenue is about 43-44%. So as we consider all of this, there's 2 big buckets that we want to leave you with of how our money comes in. Number one, about 43% of our revenue comes from the FEFP process or system. So again, enrollment driven. About 39% of it comes from taxes. Now, something to be aware of, inside the FEFP program is property taxes. And so you might say, well, why isn't that number higher for property taxes? Because part of that is embedded into the FEFP calculation. And so as you look at our budget, you'll see these two line items, and that's how we classify it. And we do budget for about 96% collection rate for a property tax collector. And I will say that's about what we average. And so that's a state mandate that we do average about 96% for budget and then see the actuals. Moving quickly through our expenses, we do see over years where our expenses are. This was just a good breakdown of kind of where does all the money go from that we allocate inside our general fund expenses. About 65-66% of it goes directly to instruction. And so that's a helpful number to see. And if we look at our total personnel cost, if you were to divvy it up that way, you would see that we were around, I can't remember, it's about 79% is what we said earlier. And so as we see that, we see the adjustments made. Now, I will say in all of this, and this is embedded in all of these areas you see on the page, energy has went up over 5 years about 22%, our energy costs. Our materials and supplies have went up 15%. And again, those are just indicators of that inflationary cost that we talked about a minute ago, and where and how does that impact us. It does impact our bottom line in almost every area that we have. Okay, about 3 more slides and then we'll have a discussion. So in 26-27, if we have everything, when we look at 26-27, the budget, we say, well, where are we projected for next year? And by having that, we look at, well, 26-27, we're projecting about 237 kids in Hillsborough County. And then, but you see that we projected a slight increase in our Hillsborough population. I think that's really important. Like, we're hoping and seeing trends that show that we might see it, and so did the state. And so we're projecting that. And then as we see all the other changes, those are things that we're going to monitor. But back to those opportunities. We see that we have a strong mission, program innovation, all those things. Those are things that we got to really lean on to make sure that we have the right things in the right places to have that. The one thing to leave on is the kids, students are in Hillsborough County. But how do we get them to come to Hillsborough a little bit more? The state of Florida budget is still underway, and right now we're hearing indications that it might be approved around May, maybe June. And so they're still finalizing that, but we wanted to highlight a couple of things that I think are really important. One thing that we think would be helpful for us to advocate for is we believe isolating the FES system outside of our numbers would be helpful. Right now it complicates things. It kind of, you see the number and it may always make sense. And so the House does include it inside their funding formula, and then the Senate, is suggesting it be outside the funding formula. So same as last year, 2 different viewpoints. We do think removing it would help everyone and provide more clarity on funding. The other 2 big moves we want to look at is a required local effort and then the base student allocation. There's really just 2 different points of kind of thought there. As we look at that, one side is wanting to lower one and then increase the other. And so we got to be aware of that because that does make a big difference. And so that's something, and right now we don't know where it's going to land, and so we'll monitor that. But that could have a big difference for us as a district. And then finally, what's our cost pressures for next year? As we look at everything and we try to have our retirement, salaries, health insurance, all those personnel costs remain around 79%. 80% in that threshold, we do see continual operating costs to go up. And so challenges around enrollment, state of Florida budget and the timing of its release, supporting our schools, the bargaining, health insurance, all those things that we've talked about, those are all things that we're trying to navigate through while trying to balance our needs of our students. And so I'll finally leave you on this is, as we mentioned earlier, I do not believe, and our team does not believe, that we're in a financial crisis. We believe that we are stable. If we can make the necessary adjustments, we'll be fine. But we do have to make adjustments. We do have a strong mission, we have a committed team, we have the best product, but it is becoming more challenging. I think we have to recognize it's because the marketplace is changing. And so, Mr. Superintendent, that's our finance presentation for today.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Thank you for that thorough presentation. Thank you and your entire team for doing that. I don't think there's been in our history an analysis like that of over the last number of years. So thank you for your time and effort into that. Madam Chair?
Yep.
Madam Vice Chair.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. I'm sure that everybody will appreciate having this folder and have that. Okay, board members, we have about 47 minutes left, so that's roughly probably about 6 minutes each, so we'll probably only have one round. So, we may have to, follow up with the next workshop and give us time to work on this more. So I just want you to be aware. So if you're going to get in the queue and you're going to speak for a long time, you'll just have probably one time to speak. But if you're going to be short, you can get back in twice, okay? So, okay, we'll start with Member Gray.
Yeah, let me start with saying a big appreciation to Mr. Lewis, Ms. Shotwell, and the finance team. Very comprehensive and totally, well, let me just say this. Let me start with the end, what was that famous one? Begin with the end in mind. So on page 43, this is a suggestion and a very, very important one to our superintendent as we move forward. When we consider that 28,000 alone, this is one consideration of revenue loss, goes to Florida Empowerment Scholarship. When we consider that, and then against the drive to, or the philosophy that we are a marketplace, we have more choices to offer, we're the best product in town, what happens when your goals on page 43, when we're talking about the relevant student-centered programs, how to attract students and how to attract teachers and administrators, how to retain teachers and students and administrators, how to deal with absenteeism, how to deal with the changing and the high velocity of Florida statutes and laws, local, state, and federal, and also the magnificent, we have quite a wonderful school model of school choice under Mr. Romano and his team. When you consider all those factors, my suggestion, Superintendent Van Ayers, the marriage, and this is, I better be careful, there's a lot of marriages going on, but it has to be not only Jamie's finance team, must be equivalent with the team of the communications, must be equivalent with government relations, must be equivalent with HR, human relations, because if you all don't work together in one room, then those goals on page 43, which you need to make, and you are, I have no doubt that you will fulfill those, will be in jeopardy, because that is what we're missing, I think, a lot of the conversation. There are too many separate fiefdoms, and I think the harmony needs to be happening more than not. So that's a change I would like to see in real time. That communications team is critical to work with you all, especially when we're sharing revenue sources and expenditures. My question is, and that's the bigger overview. So specifically on page 25, when you look at that page on the bottom, it says it's a challenge to balance the needs of students and schools. I think when you choose units, staffing, that, and I think you're doing this, and I talked to Marcos this morning, you have to look at South Tampa differently than South County, because you're dealing with two opposite ends of the spectrum in many cases. You got agriculture on one, and then more of the urban, and I'm sure Dr. Harm will correct me on the status of South Tampa, but there's a different population, different needs. So I want us to be very sensitive to that. On page, well, you might want to reply, Mr. Lewis, how are you addressing that when you address units?
We do units per school, and not just holistically in the district. So obviously, we're seeing shows in different areas of the county. I think we've seen that throughout our history, where we've seen ebb and flows. And so we do look at it per school, and I think that's important as we see that and what it is. And of course, we've made changes, and so we also take that into account as we had schools transition to K-8s or vice versa, or movement, how we've moved things around the last couple of years. So we have to take all that into account.
Yeah, I mean, the changes of population dictate changes of our way of work and our philosophies And of course, that manifests itself to course offerings, et cetera. So, and tell me when my time's up, because I have a lot of questions.
You got about 2 more minutes.
I got about 2 more minutes. Okay, so on page 26, when we talk about community-based schools, how do we have community schools, we have schools that are very community-based. How is that allocation process modified? Because you got 2 different kind of systems here. Years ago, we all went to a community, like Claywell. All of us came from Northdale, we go there, or Plant High School, mostly community school. But then you have community schools, formative, a more formative language. How do you address that for staffing allocation?
Thank you, Member Gray. We do not staff differently for our community schools. We do use supplemental funding sources to support a parent liaison and a community school resource teacher. Other than that, there is no difference in the allocation for instructional purposes.
Okay, so that's the answer to that. I had just one more question, and I'll wait to hear the other board members. Middle and high schools on page 31. You have the separation. Elementary schools are one staffing allocation, and then you have middle and high school considerations for that staffing. But how are the staffing rules of engagement for K through 8s? Is there any change? Because you have delineated elementary, middle, high school, but what about K through 8s?
And actually, well, whoever wants to come speak to that can, but I'll just speak to K. And not only knowing K8s, a lot of our K8s are different. We have K8s enrollments of 700-800. We have K8s enrollment of 1,600. We have a Turn of Artels, and we are almost 2 different sites with 1,600 students. So those are allocated a little bit differently. That's where, as Mr. Lewis mentioned, we work with our regional superintendents throughout that process to ensure, because not every K8 is going to be staffed exactly the same because of different operational needs that they have in the campus itself. So they're all, as we go through these, they are all looked at individually. I can't stress that enough through all these staffing allocations, through the process of the team, regional soups, business, Ms. McCrae that oversees all of this from my end to ensure that we've got those needs that are met. We come up with an allocation, but then individually we look at those schools to make sure those needs are met at those sites. So that's that. Anything else on K8 you want to jump in?
That was such a great answer. Catherine went back and sat down.
But I mean, that's so important, that
That's
answer,
accurate.
because what we're doing is we're really individualizing the needs of the schools before and the needs of the children. And I like that answer, and I think it's very favorable in terms of, what the public is hearing. So I'm done for now.
Okay.
And
Thank you. Member Gray, you probably will not be able to get back in, just so you know. If you take 3 minutes, you'll be able to get back in for 3 minutes, but if you don't, probably there'll be time. Yes.
Our team
Member,
is
okay,
taking
and then
notes in case
next
there's
up, and
anything
if
we
you
can't answer.
haven't been online, give me eye contact. Member
be able to
Vaughn.
see.
Thank you. I'm officially requesting a part 2 of this because I have 27 questions that I've written down, and 6 minutes is not sufficient. This is a huge amount of information that we did not get 2 weeks beforehand, which I know we've asked for. I will start off and say I appreciate this. I think this is, as to Superintendent Ayer's point, such a good starting place. It takes so many complex issues and funding sources and to try to chunk it down in a way that your average person can try to understand and get a sense of it. So I can't imagine the amount of work that went into that, and I really do appreciate that piece of it. It makes it so much easier for people who have no idea to even try to have a conversation about this to get some starting points. So I want to start with that. I have a lot more questions about the recalibration part, because to me what I'm unsure of is what proof is being used for the recalibration. If we have a roster and we've met the eligibility criteria and we're saying this student is ours, it seems like what happens a lot is then the state comes back and says, actually, this isn't your student, you don't have that enrollment, and I don't really understand the process of figuring out where the student was and ensuring to make sure that the money is truly following the student. So I would really like to understand that whole recalibration process more, because from my point of view, it looks like the state just comes back and says, no, you don't have those students, without providing where they were or what that looks like. And as you mentioned, that makes creating a budget and any of this incredibly challenging if we feel like we've serviced those students, but we're not getting the money for it. So I have a lot of questions about the recalibration piece, and I'll save those. Also, one thing that I think we need to talk about that we haven't talked about, and then I feel like there's a push and a pull when we're talking about things that are affecting enrollment in our schools, is we've absolutely talked about the birth rate. We've talked about, now we have all this school choice, but more increasingly as I go into a lot of my schools, what I think that we need to have a conversation about one way or another is whether there's fear of sending kids to school because of immigration, if there's withdrawal because of immigration policies, what sort of effect that's having on our enrollment and what that really looks like. Because if we're going to have a real conversation about our district and anticipating enrollment and what that looks like, we have to be open and honest about all the contributing factors in that. So I think we need to I really would like to know, like, if we can figure out even what percentage of what that looks like. I know we have migrant populations. I mean, I know that we can't identify every family that's immigrant family and get real-time numbers, but even to get a percentage of that, because from my schools, when I go into them, that's a huge driving factor in enrollment. I also think that I have I have a lot of questions about our new staffing model, process. And I think some of my challenges is, while I think there is best intent, I think some of these concepts are subjective. As far as maintaining transparency to all stakeholders, open and regular communication. Even after we've kind of identified the staffing models, I've gotten nonstop concerns with staff members trying to figure out the timing of when they're going to know if they're going to lose their positions at their schools or not. And I can't emphasize enough the anxiety around changes in staffing and what that looks like. And I really wish we could find a way to minimize this, okay, we're going to take away your units, but don't worry, we'll give them back, because that sounds great in theory, like if your enrollment is higher than what we expect. But what we're not really talking about is you could lose 5 or 6 good teachers that have been a part of your school community for a long time, and just giving back alternative staff members or units doesn't necessarily replace the people that you've lost who are integral in that school community. And so I wish we could have a conversation more about how that process works. I think that, I've said it before and I'll say it again, that while we have a lot of things in here that look like we're engaging all stakeholders, we are not engaging the principals to have direct conversations with the people who are making the decisions. And when you say things like we reevaluate it and then we give back schools things based on their needs, I find that not to be true. I find that there are lots of principals who are saying what their needs are, making a case for the regional superintendents. The regional superintendents are pleading the cases, and for whatever the reason, the district does not find that to be of value. And so I don't think it's an actual statement to be like, oh, well, we let schools decide their individual needs and then we give units back, because I'm not finding that to be the case. And I'm going to plead again for an opportunity for principals in the school, with whomever's in the room, however close you've been tied to schools. I'm going to say it again. Things have changed in 5 years. They change year to year. I don't care if you were a principal 5 years ago. It looks very different now, and not allowing principals to have a direct communication with the people who are making decisions around what their schools is going to look like is problematic. And I'm going to make that request again. So I'd like to come back and talk about that, because I have more to say about that. But I do want to say that if we're going to talk about attractors and how we're going to keep people making choices in our schools, we can't continue to just cut units blindly, because a lot of those units that you're cutting are teachers who are staying afterwards and offering those attractors. And so you might be just cutting a unit in a math department, but that teacher might be doing 3 additional clubs that keeps kids choosing that school for those after-school clubs. Because I can tell you right now, decisions that I'm making as a parent has to do with extracurricular, enrichment, other things other than what just the academics are going to be in that school. And so, I think that's the problem, is we're saying we have all these great attractors, we have all this, but as we cut and we cut, which I'm not saying it's intentional. I mean, obviously you've presented a good case of financially why we have to make these decisions. That affects the quality of what we can offer. And I don't know if there's enough communication about that when we're talking about, and I don't know if that's an opportunity to rediscuss some of the contractual ways that we do unit out losses, like if there's a teacher that offers a club, if we can factor that in when we're looking at the whole process. But I know that there are several good programs and things that are being lost at schools through this new unit allocation process. Again, I'm sorry I'm taking up so much time. I just have so many questions. I'm really trying to go through this. Aside from the unit allocation, which again I have more questions about, I appreciate the slide about the legislation updates. I think that's really important, and to see that in black and white is really interesting, see the difference between the House and the Senate. But I was wondering, when you were looking at our allocation of percentage-wise, how much we've increased, and you said we were only at 27% when the state average was 29%, and you said there were contributing factors. Can you send me a list of what those contributing factors are? Because I'd like to know what those are. And also, back to the staffing allocation, when you said that our target range is a certain amount and kindergarten hasn't gone up, I haven't seen that to be true. So what I'm wondering is if I can get a report on the percentage of classrooms where we hit our target for the allocation. So saying, you know, our target was 18 in kindergarten classrooms, but realistically, 5% of those meet the target allocation. So that would really help me put that into perspective. And gosh, there's so much more, but, oh, one last thing. On page 40, when we were talking about different things, because I do have questions about when you were saying we only get that 1% or 1% funding, and if somebody takes a virtual class, we only, you know, I want to know, is that like half, or what's the percentage of the 1% that we get that is taken away from us if they take one virtual class? Is that 5.5%?
Yeah.
Yep.
1/6 for every class they take virtually?
Pretty much the funding for a student is divided in 1/6, and so. By Florida virtual.
Okay.
And so the funding would change a little bit
Wrapping it
based
up.
on what they're doing or taking. But that slide does show that they take 5 on Hillsborough and 1 on virtual will receive 5,
Okay.
6, and then they'll receive a 6.
So again, I have a plethora of more questions, but to be fair to my fellow board members, I'm going to go ahead and try to figure out how to get them answered at some point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Vaughn. And I think definitely just the feeling, even I'm feeling, that we'll probably have to, next time we have a workshop, we need to carve a little bit more time to discuss this, because I think we're going to need that. Okay, Member Rendon, then Member Hahn. Okay.
Thank you, Member
I'll say.
Combs. If we could go back to page 44 on the slides when it went to the House and the Senate, I think I like a little bit more explanation, because you made the comment that we wanted it not included in the FEFP. Am I correct? In the formula funding,
We would like FES pulled out of
FES out.
Hillsborough's numbers.
Okay, so in doing that,
They'd be their own district, basically.
we want us to be our own district.
Yeah, and FES
Correct,
to be
and,
theirs.
right, so we want it, but the Senate is pulling it out, I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, because I thought you said the House was
I
and
might
the
have messed
Senate
that
was
up.
not.
I
Okay,
apologize about that.
so the House is not pulling it out.
Right.
That's right, yeah, it was said differently, that's why I want to
I
double check.
apologize, yeah.
Okay, so
One-
I want
One
to
group is wanting to remove it completely out of our numbers, and then one is
the
gonna
Senate
continue-
budget goes with the Auditor General report, where it separates the empowerment scholarships, and then ours.
That is-
However, they still have not increased the total state allocation to DOE, so no matter what, we are still dealing with a state where we are funding more students than we ever have before.
Yes.
Because totally, according to the Auditor General, 85% of the students with the empowerment scholarship were never in our schools. So now we've got traditional charter, which we've always been paying for, and now we've got more empowerment that we've never paid for. And so in doing that, we've got to make sure that we're having these conversations and we're advocating for, because the other piece is that the House is not increasing our base as much as the House is increasing more than the Senate is, but the Senate's dividing. So we're losing both ways right now.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're clear on that. The other thing I do want to know is, I think it's important that I would like to sit down and go over my schools and what that looks like, because somehow I've only got 148 less students in my entire district, but yet the district is cutting 130 units. That's almost like a unit per student. that doesn't add up. Mathing doesn't add up. And I would say that probably doesn't add up with other board members' districts. I can only speak on mine because I don't have a depth knowledge. But when you lose 148 students total and you're going to lose 130 staff members, it doesn't add up. So my question based upon that is when you talked about the new allocation formula and you said we've got in a high school 24 core classes, but then the electives are 35. Are you including AP, dual enrollment, ACE as electives? Okay, so but those are core classes to kids.
No, it's each kid, Catherine, if you want to make sure that I say this right, but each student is 4 classes that are allocated at a core and 3 classes that are allocated at an elective. Now, there's kids that, like you mentioned, there's students that
7.
They take 7 academic classes. Now, the state gives us a list of which classes fall under the class size amendment. So that's a different,
Totally
when they
different.
talk core. But as far
We're
as
not making class size amendment
allocation,
anyways.
actually, we think we will. But allocation-wise, there's 4 classes that are allocated for high schools at core and 3 that are done as elective.
Okay.
And the 3 at elective were always at 35. So the difference is the 4 core that were done last year, let's say for high school at 25 average, are being done at 27.
So because realistically, I very well could have a sophomore student in high school that's taking 2 English, 2 math.
Correct.
Because they're going to dual enroll by the time they're a senior or what have you. And so we're asking these teachers to be teaching a high-level advanced ACE course, which requires extensive numbers of research, extensive numbers of papers. So we're asking teachers to be unequitably paid based upon the work that they're doing. When we look at this, if we're asking to maintain a classroom of 35 for, an ACE Global class where they're doing a heck of a lot more work than I would say a biology sophomore class is going to be doing. It's a very different scope of what they're having to maintain and do, as well as piggybacking off on Member Vaughn, that we're pulling key areas. I mean, I've got schools that are equitable or a couple additional students than they had at the beginning of the year, and they're being asked to cut allocations. That means I'm not giving equitable time to these students in these high level courses. It's just, it doesn't add up. Math's not adding. So I would like to have a way that you can sit down with each of our board members and explain how these have come up with these classes. Like I said, God, if I lose another student, I'm going to lose another staff somewhere. This is ridiculous for my district. And I know I have a district, when you've got a district of 41,000 students and it's 148, that's 0.003. That could be a standard of error for a day, let alone we're going to cut 130 units. I just don't find it to be mathing. And I don't find it that I can sit there and I'm 100% behind that we provide the best product, but that we cut our schools, we cut our product. They are our sales force. They are our product. They are everything in this district. And so we've got to do better by this somehow. And I get the fact that we've got budgets we've got to look at. I'm all about advocating for what we need. I'm all about doing all the above. But we have to globally see, not just in this whole thing, the only thing you brought to us is you brought us percentages, but you didn't bring us that percentage in cost, right? So like, for example, I may only have a district of 3%, right, or 1%, but what does that money add up compared to my school that's at 105%, or my school that's at 97%? And then I've got schools out there that are like 40%. What is an alternative that we can combine? Where are we going to do that we can maintain the same number of teachers? Because when we met the first time about all these change in allocations, you told me there was going to be a difference of around 700 staff. But the only place I've seen any staff removal is from our schools. That's it. I've not seen, and I've requested, Superintendent, I've asked for the table of organizations. I've been given Excel spreadsheets, but I'm not going to go down and have to hunt down what this idea of this job is and what it is. I find that to be very untransparent. I find it that it looks like being hidden from exactly what's happening with other departments. And so I'd like to some explanation of why things are being done the way they are. Because the last thing I want to do is remove a faculty member from a school. because the only person that hurts is a student.
Okay, and thank you, Member Rendon. Okay, and we have 25 minutes left of this workshop, so Member Hahn?
So I have 25 minutes?
It's getting down, now everyone's down to 5 minutes.
Kidding. Okay. So I appreciate you talking about the FES and how it needs to sit outside. We've talked one-on-one, you and I, about the importance of that happening. I just say if it does not, for some reason, get done this year, that we consider putting it on our legislative platform this summer. It's an important conversation, especially when we see how complex the complexities around school choice and funding, and how kids are moving in and out of different choices, going back to Member Vaughn's comments, money following the child. This will help, I would imagine, a great deal in that, and not doing so much guesswork. The second thing I wanted to bring up is, one, thank you for all of this. It's really, I know we always have workshops on just the budget, the general fund, or operations, or the FEP, but this was really a big picture today. And I think it's important because we need to see the interconnectivity of everything around our budget, and it is extremely complex to balance this budget, and very little bit of a turn can really move it in one direction or another. And so I would just say the biggest thing we should really, as a school board, practice is fiscal discipline. And it's really hard, because you've got constituents who are asking for special programs or projects, and whether it comes out of the general fund or the operations, even something as small as, $1 million, and I know that's a lot of money, but when you're talking about a $4.4 billion budget, sometimes people don't think $1 million is a lot. It is a lot, and it can tip things, in a negative or positive way. So I think as a board, as board members, we need to demonstrate fiscal discipline. I know there's been programs and projects that are happening that have never come to the board for discussion, and they are going to have a financial implications when it comes to balancing this budget. And we all want to get stuff done for our constituents. But I think, and I'm working on some policy around this, that when you have new programs or projects, they need to come to the board for a discussion, or at the very least a workshop, so they can demonstrate the rationale and the return on investment. And sometimes your rationale is great, but sometimes it's not going to be enough. And so I just think that fiscal discipline, when you're trying to plan at the level and the complex level that our staff are trying to plan, this how we're spending and getting our money, fiscal discipline, without it, it can cause a lot of chaos. And then when we see things like units being cut and so forth, and it's important to talk about the operations budget, because we do transfer money from operations to cover costs in the general fund. And unfortunately, when I first got elected, we had a lot of deferred maintenance. And that was because we were transferring an awful lot of money from our operations at that time to cover costs in our general fund, because we didn't want to make hard decisions, because we didn't have a lot of fiscal discipline. We wanted to make everybody happy, and we have to make hard decisions as leaders, and I think that is the key to us staying financially healthy like we are now, is all of us committing to fiscal discipline. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Rendon. Member Washington?
Thank you, ma'am. Jamie, I want to thank you and Danielle and the staff for doing a great job. I know your job is very difficult because you're dealing with money, you're dealing with personnel. One of the things that since going around the schools for probably the last month or so, a lot of the principals are saying that Do we call them around the table? Do we have a table when they come up, when we make decisions or make cuts, where the principals come to the table and you tell them what units they'll cut, and then they ask you, could they keep the units? Have we been doing that? Ma'am?
The process that the staffing team, they release an Power BI where it has all of their, basically the school's magic number, if you want to call it, how many units they're being allocated. The regional superintendents were able to, on the behalf of their principals, advocate for different things that they saw within that magic number that they did not think would be something that was doable. We also had regional superintendents that did a great job going out and meeting with their principals, as well as Karen French and Christy Rayburn from Academic Services, and were held the hands of the principals to see if they could get to their magic number. So that was something that happened there, and it was all done through the regional superintendent to the staffing team. That was, yes.
But we also went down. I brought the principals down. When I was the area superintendent, not only did they give me the information, I had the principal to come down and meet with the committee. I think this is just a suggestion now. There's not anything wrong, but I think we should have principals down so they can defend themselves and defend their unit with their regional superintendent. That's the way that we did it. And then when you do that, you can see and you could understand, they could understand the process. But now, I mean, the regional superintendent is very important because that's their daddy, in other words. And they are there to guide them. But at the end of the day, when they need units, when they really need something, the regional superintendent and the principal should meet with the committee. Like, for example, all come around the table. You should have HR there. You should have, you got the finance there. You got other unit analysis is there. Who else I wrote down should be there? The curriculum department. All of those people should be around the table and give them a chance and explain to them why you're cutting the units. But I think they feel now like you're not communicating properly with them. You're going through somebody else. They want to sit around the table and with the regional superintendent so they can defend themselves with their units. I think that's a good way of doing it. Then everybody is more involved. And instead of getting like the regional superintendent, okay, we don't cut this unit, but we got to meet next week, and that's how we used to do it.
And that can be something we can look at. Now, the process you're speaking to is a media room, just like this, where we had the chief. It was organized by the assistant superintendent for administration or chief of schools at the time. But the CFO was there, HR was there, we had academics that were there. It was a 2-day. It was almost a 2-day process of schools that would come in. We look at units, and they would make recommendations on, their numbers that they're coming in with, why or why not. We haven't had, that's something we can look at. We haven't had that process in probably several years. It's been a long time, but that's something that we can look at. It's a pick a school like we used to and sit up there for 2 days and review units for the following year. But I know the process that you're speaking of. We haven't done that in a long time. But Ms. McCray, if you want to take a look at that process, working with Mr. Lewis to see if that's something we want to look at for in years to come, where we take some days and sit around a table and go one by one through 233. But the process he's speaking of, it was every school. I'm not sure if elementary. It was middle and high. Middle and high. Thank you, Ms. Brown. So it was middle and high school. Would go around a table like this, not elementary, but we can definitely look at that.
And it was just as much, if I remember correctly, Mr. Washington, a master schedule review as well. Like, it was more about reviewing your master schedule to make sure that the units you had been allocated, that you had them in the appropriate places. Which that we can still do. We're not there yet.
And I think that's good to give them that opportunity, just with middle schools and high schools, and give them an opportunity to defend themselves and go over and so forth. It takes time because you're talking about, I forget how many middle schools now and high schools you have, but at least you're giving the principal opportunity to come down and defend their units. I don't have any more. I think that's important.
And we'll take that feedback back and see if that's something, because we're at a time, even if you looked at when we were going through that process many years ago, we didn't have changes in enrollment like we're dealing with now, right? So we didn't have that same type of loss in enrollment that we've experienced over the last number of years, but that's something that we can look at. In the end, I want to make sure Mr. Lewis did a very eloquent job of going through that process. I'll make it quite simple. When you are doing projections in the springtime, you are projecting a number for the fall. There's nobody around this room, not my staff, not Ms. McCray, not Mr. Porter, that can commit with any certainty the number of students Hillsborough County is going to have on the 7th day next year. No one. So we are very conservative in our allocations of units. I want to say again that those are projections that we do. We make adjustments on the 7th day, but we cannot and will not do while I'm superintendent is we're not going to get into a place where we're going to over-allocate in the units in the springtime, and then come the fall, and we realize we have a drop in enrollment, we've hired too many people, and we're back at that number again of 87% of teachers or employees that we have in relation to our overall budget. And the number I always talk to Mr. Lewis is that 79%. What is our number? Because back Gibson report time back from 2016-17, it was how many percentage of employees we had in respect to our operational budget, and that number was too high, and we've worked too hard to get where we're at now to go backwards. And I'll just say that all the feedback today has been great, but this is difficult work because you're trying to project and look into the future, and if we are not careful and we over-project and over-hire, it will not be a good situation in the fall. So we're just being ultra conservative, and I will always ensure as superintendent that we do so. We maintain this fiscal efficiency that we've been at, and we will not lose that.
Yeah, and I agree. You know, I just want the principals to know, because we got a few principals, I mean, some, just need to come down, because, you know, we got new principals. We got new principals in position, and they don't know, you know. Yeah, that's what the collaboration, communication, that's all we need.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Washington. And I have to say that I think this was a great presentation. I think I wish it had been shorter, because I feel bad. A lot of my board members want to go back and make comments on what other board members have said or their thoughts now. And the idea that they can't is I feel very frustrated about that. And I feel disappointed, because I know I've had three board members who keep looking at me and can't get back in line. I'm just going to talk about like a high view, and then I'm just going to talk about some local things, because I always go through these agenda items and things for a long time. So I always feel like the talking can be a little bit shorter, even though I got this late, because I just think it saves time for us board members to engage more. The biggest thing that we haven't talked about over and over is, you know, at the end of the day, our biggest job, as Member Hahn said, was being, you know, making fiscal tough decisions. But also, the biggest thing for me is to advocate for what's right for the state. And what nobody's talked about is the state. We are the top lowest in the nation of funding from our state Department of Education. We are the lowest in the Southeast. And if in 2007 and 2008, if we'd return to the national average, that's when it really changed. In 2007, 2008, we stopped being a national average. And after COVID, everybody returned to 2013 to the pre-COVID level of inflation. The only place that didn't change was here. And guess what? The highest rate of inflation in the whole nation was right here in Hillsborough County. So not only did the Department of Education not fund us, they also didn't fund us due to inflation costs, and they also have kept that. If you look at the three main things that happen when you're not funded: large class size, fewer resources, and a greater reliance on property taxes, okay? And we almost weren't even able to put that millage on our ballot. So it is very concerning of the things that are happening locally and also at a state level, and that needs to be discussed, and we need to talk about it, and we need to keep advocating and pushing the idea that we're so low when our inflation is, and the cost of energy has gone up 20%, all the contracts have 25%, and we're looking at a $40 increase per student allocation. It's a joke, you know, and why every voter doesn't know that is ridiculous, and it's really important. The other part for me, the higher thing is, for example, when we talk about our enrollment going down and everyone going down, I've been saying this for years, people are moving here all the time. People are just choosing not to go to whatever, or they're choosing homeschool. We have the largest homeschool population here in Hillsborough County. Listen, if someone wants to homeschool their child, that's great. The other day, In the middle of the day, go to the stadium, Raymond James Stadium right now. You'll see young teenage kids selling water. And I asked them why they were selling water, and one of them told me they had a dentist appointment. The rest of them told me that they were being homeschooled. Okay, if you go out to Ybor City in this area right now, well, you'll see right now in the middle of the day, you'll see kids who are 12, 13 years old selling water and not getting an education. That is where we need to require oversight from the Department of Education to make sure that if kids are getting an education, that they're actually getting an education. They're not panhandling water, and they're not sitting in front of a Walmart selling candy. That all happened to me in the last 2 weeks. And another person I saw them at the mall, and they said, my wife's homeschooling them. I have 50% custody of the children, but I don't homeschool them at all when they're with me. So we need to look at accountability on that and make sure that kids are getting an education. My biggest thing locally here is I think the timeline was not good. There was a lack of communication. I think the principals feel frustrated that all of a sudden the units were provided and not enough time for them to really kind of work out. You know, if you're a principal and you have to let 5 people go, sometimes you need longer than 5 or 6 days. You need a couple weeks to really look at your agenda, to look at your scheduling. I think that communication, and there's multiple reasons why that's happened. I think we realized that we had to increase the class size. I think that's horrible. I remember teaching and I had like 34 students in a class, but the students they're more challenging after COVID, right? Kids are on the phone, they're distractible, the behaviors are different. So I understand that. But I cannot, what am I supposed to do when it's not like you're hiding money from somewhere. It's not like we have a huge, large number of cabinet members. None of that. We're looking at every single dollar every single day. And I think that communication with the principals and the teachers goes a long way, because it's not a local issue, it's a state issue. And I think it's really important we talk about that. And then finally, because I'm trying to keep to my time too, is really looking at that marketing of students and the oversight and being very intentional with that, because everyone's losing students, but making sure that at the end of the day we remember why we're here, and it's to give students a great education. So if they're sitting there selling water, or if they're not in school, or they're in a class size, I really agree with Mr. Washington. Those principals who work, they are the driving force in this district. Nobody knows who I am. Everyone knows who, Ms. Traficante is in West Chase or whoever, right? They are the driving force. They need to feel like they have their voice here, and that they can talk about that, and they can defend an allocation, because sometimes not every school is exactly the same. I'd love to say it was, but it's not. And also, not every school spends their Title I money the exact same way, and they need guidance and support on that, and that's what we're counting on with you. And I think that just needs to improve, but I know we're all doing the best that we can. We're not trying to cut class sizes. I just think the communication needs to get a little bit better. Thank you. Thank you. Chair Perez?
Thank you. So I just wanted. The private schools are now ticking up with their fees, right? Those fees are going up, and when those vouchers don't meet the what they need for the tuition, and the parents have to pay out of pocket, those students are coming back to us. Are we looking and seeing what's going on with those students?
As far as those that are in a private school or charter school that might
Correct.
come back to Hillsborough?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are utilizing a company to help us with that and outreaching to those, and we could talk more about that
Yes,
at a later
please.
date. But yes, we're looking at that, and that's going to be an emphasis to, again, the students are in Hillsborough. How do we get in touch with them and ask them to rejoin us?
Yeah, because I was alerted that those private schools, their tuition fees are going up,
They
as
are.
a matter of fact.
Good.
And Alonzo, Durant, Newsom, Plant City High, Riverview, and Strawberry Crest, those are really high need schools. It was like Member Gray was mentioning. Those schools really are different needs, right? When we look at those schools, different needs. Agricultural, whether they're up in South County, the population, the different needs. So when we look, there are over 2,000 students in those schools. You know, those are high volume schools. So when we're looking at what we're going to be cutting, and I get Superintendent Ayers, the Gibson report we did, like Member Hahn mentioned, when I first was elected, along with her, we were looking at a deficit of $175 million, and that was also behind the grants gate, the Gates grant, because we had hired a lot of staff under that grant, and then we felt bad because we had to let them go, but I'm going to give you a definition. Magic is an illusion of impossible feats. So we might want to change that title of magic numbers, because we're asking them for their magic number. And again, I say magic is an illusion of impossible feats. And that's what we're asking our staff to do, is provide us impossible feats. Okay? And so when we're looking at our students, we're not asking for impossible feats. We're asking for education, we're asking for staff, and we're asking for allocations for our students. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.